What is up, guys? Wrestling Premiere is here. Well, it's about time. I've dragged this video, but we got it done. Eddie Guerrero had a very remarkable career. He's one of my all-time favorite wrestlers due to his versatility. He excels in every facet of the game. Heel, face, in-ring, lucha, promo, I can't say anything bad about him. He captivated audiences with his very entertaining, at times hilarious, babyface runs. He got fans to hate his guts during his feud with Rey Mysterio. It's a damn shame he passed. With regards to this run, I thought it's cool to go back to a time where the crowd was really starting to feel Latino heat. By the end of the title run, he was number 2 or number 3 in most over wrestlers on SmackDown. It was a combination of his character, style, and impressive performances that got the crowd to root for Eddie Guerrero. To give you an idea of how loved he was, well, for a part of the run, he was a heel, yet was receiving bigger pops than a bunch on the roster. With that said, let's get into it. So in 2003, WWE decided to bring back the prestigious United States Championship. The title had a rich and storied history, held by the likes of Dusty Rhodes, Ric Flair, Sting, Bret Hart, Lex Luger, David Flair, Steve Austin, and of course, Eddie Guerrero. It was a great decision because, like I mentioned in that 2002 video, the Raw roster was directionless. The same was occurring on SmackDown, and it gave him something to fight for. On the June 19, 2003 episode of SmackDown, Chris Benoit was set to team up with his good buddy Rhino. All of a sudden, Stephanie McMahon, the GM, came out and she said she wanted competition with a title in hand. She announced that those two got a face-off in a United States Championship tournament. 8 men participated. Benoit was the first to advance, followed by Matt Hardy, Billy Gunn, and of course Eddie Guerrero. Now, Latino Heat at this point was under some stress. He had other things to deal with, such as checking on his partner actually the hood of his car. Yeah. After failing to beat the world's greatest tag team and losing the tag titles in the process of doing so, Eddie refused to check on his partner, rather he checked on his lowrider. He remained next to the vehicle for several minutes before attacking his partner Tajiri for sitting on top of his car. He even brutally slammed him across the windshield. Because of this, he received an Eddie chant. Yep. The following week, Latino Heat came out to explain his actions. Guerrero wished Tajiri a speedy recovery, claiming it's sincere, and the crowd could sense what's up, but they still chanted his name anyways. He admitted that he had a small temper problem and made it seem like this was normal. To Eddie, touching his ride is like touching his mamacita. He also said that it's time to take care of number 1, which is himself, of course. He managed to beat Ultimo Dragon before beating Billy Gunn to set up a final with his old friend Chris Benoit of Vengeance. Before the pay-per-view, Latino Heat gave his final thoughts. Of course, before that could occur, he had to triple check on his car. He promoted Vengeance and talked about wrestling his friend. As he's talking about Sunday, the rabid Wolverine interrupted. Fans cheered for him, Eddie, and they were booing Benoit. Not everyone, of course, it was a mixed reaction. Benoit questioned that whole best friend statement, saying it's been months since he's called on the phone. Chris didn't want to be led on by Eddie with this whole friends thing, and he saw right through it and said that nobody's going to stop him from winning the title at Vengeance. Eddie laughed it off and admitted that he was lying. Matter of fact, the truth is he couldn't stand Chris Benoit. From All Japan to ECW's been Chris Benoit, best technical wrestler in the world. Eddie Guerrero, who? In the Radical days, people were showering Benoit with praises, whereas he was getting nothing. Latino Heat was fed up with being number 2. He wanted to be number 1, and Sunday was the perfect situation to make that happen. He promised to kick his ass before leaving. Benoit stopped him and asked if he's got a problem with the segments, and if he does, he should enter the ring. Eddie chants intensify. Benoit's provoking him, but he opts to fight using his mouth. Having Benoit bark stuff at him wasn't going to goad him in. He was simply patient, there was a time for them to fight. Nah, he's lying. The rabid Wolverine quickly took him down before walking directly into a spray wax attack. Well, that's something I didn't expect to say today. The crowd was a little wild, opted to cheer and chant for Eddie, and Rhino quickly made the save. He ended up challenging Latino Heat, and this led to an impromptu match. Even though it was pretty competitive, Eddie Guerrero managed to cheat to win once more, and this man at this point was the most intelligent wrestler on SmackDown. He had the wrestling ability, but like he says, if you're not cheating, you're not trying. Now, about their match at Vengeance, I spoke about it in this video, but it was a technically proficient opener that seemed to check off all the boxes. Eddie was going to make good of the chaos he caused, but Benoit still kicked out, so he had to rely on a Rhino interference to steal the title and become the first WWE United States Champion. His first title defense came later that week on SmackDown against a familiar friend. So Eddie was preparing to defend his title against Tajiri. Problem was, he randomly popped out of the hood of the car and spat green, misleading Latino Heat at a huge disadvantage. He said he couldn't wrestle, but Mike Chioda couldn't give it them, and he even threatened to strip the title off of Eddie Guerrero. After the commercial break, we discovered Guerrero taking a huge beating. Tajiri was fast and aggressive on the offense. Once the ref pushed him away, Eddie fought back. Not for long though, as Tajiri seemed to be on form. The champion had to get behind the ref's back in order to get a slight advantage, and they were both relatively dirty. It's not like Tajiri was a pure good guy or something. The action was quick, impactful, and at this point, Eddie was much smarter. Unlike previously, he was actually in control. Scoop slam and the champ climbs up top. Tajiri Low catches up and kicks him before executing a superplex, and both men were spent at this point. Mike Chioda's counting their shoulders down, and once both men recover, the Japanese buzzsaw begins his comeback. He was showing intensity with every strike and kick, but this was 2003 Eddie Guerrero. He was obviously going to find a way out. While he was showing some fight at the moment, Tajiri was still on a hot streak. He was damn near unstoppable, and a body slam counter from Eddie led to the two amigos. The third obviously wasn't to be, and instead Eddie was locked in the tarantula. Illegal hold, so he let go before the count of 5. The kick wasn't to be, shenanigans unfold, and boom, Eddie low blows his best friend. The rest sensed something, but it didn't matter because he walked directly into the green mist. Tajiri delivers the kick, he checks on the ref, and Eddie went looking for the championship. He knew damn well that it was going to end the same way it's always been. He whacked Tajiri, tossed the belt, before bringing in a bottle of water to flush the mist out of the ref's eyes. Intelligent. Frog splash, 1, 2, 3. Not a bad match. It was pretty damn entertaining, and again, it's cool seeing Eddie pull out a scrappy, unethical win. With SummerSlam on the horizon and with other guys such as Chris Benoit craving a title match, Eddie was booked to defend the title in a fatal 4-way against Chris Benoit, Rhino, and Tajiri. Benoit in particular managed to score a victory over Eddie in the weeks leading to the match, and at one point even found time to question the friendship on commentary. So Eddie was sitting, ready to give his opinions on the Tajiri Rhino match when Benoit sat right beside him. In the ring, Tajiri managed to score a W and Eddie opted to run away. Benoit wanted to ride since they were apparently good friends in the past. Eddie played along, but it seemed like Benoit was serious. He's asking for the hydraulics or whatever, and Latino, he's like, screw it, I'm out of here. Before the event, however, Eddie made an enemy out of Rhino. So it was Latino Heat against the world. I already spoke about their match in this video. I talked about it in great detail, and to me, it's a sleeper. Like, for all the good matches that came from SummerSlam, this sure as hell doesn't get mentioned. Is it a world beater? By no means, but for 10 minutes, you get to watch some very fast-paced action that doesn't miss a beat. In the early going, Guerrero was very intelligent, letting the guys fight it out, and he only interfered when necessary. They ended up ganging up on him, and he remained in the ring for the most part. He had a huge moment to end things with a lasso, but Benoit locked in the crossface, and Guerrero was pissing himself. He was worried he was going to lose the title. He then finds himself in that predicament, but was luckily saved by Tajiri. Some back and forth action between the two good guys, Germans, tarantulas. And meanwhile, Eddie took a gore. Well, kind of. He protected himself with the title belt. As he's looking to end it, Tajiri kicks him out of the ring before being turned upside down in the corner. He hurricanrana's Benoit out, and Eddie capitalizes with a frog splash. 1, 2, 3. Eddie once again showed kayfabe-wise why he's the smartest, and from here on, well, his heel run ceased to exist. Why? Well, according to the Wrestling Observer newsletter back in August of 2003, Guerrero played a huge part in the ratings. It looks like Latino Heat Eddie Guerrero is having a positive aspect on the WWE's ratings. There's been an increase in the normal ratings over the past few weeks in 3 of the 4 markets, LA, San Fran, and Dallas, with the largest Hispanic viewership in part due to the success of Guerrero's character in recent weeks. With Eddie being a big part of the increase in those markets, we'll have to see if Vince McMahon decides to feature Eddie more prominently over the next few weeks to capitalize on this rating boost. This was from the beginning of August. Where we are on the timeline is SummerSlam 03, and what followed was the August 28th, 2003 episode of SmackDown that happened to be in El Paso. Now, me personally, I feel this was the beginning of Eddie's ascent to the top of WWE. So Latino, he kicked off the show to speak about a couple of things. It was obviously his hometown, so it makes sense to kick things off with him. The man hadn't even arrived to the arena, yet the fans were loudly chanting his name. Eddie entered the arena from the crowd, greeted the fans, hugged Taz, and opted to place a sombrero on Cole's head. Taz called it a cowboy hat, which was hilarious. And in the ring, Latino, he proudly said that he's home. He's talking about his grandmother coming to America, becoming the first liar, cheater, and stealer from the family, and he seemed to relish the crowd reception. As he's speaking about his grandmother, John Cena, of all people, interrupted. As expected, the fans were livid. Cena then poked insult at the fans, claimed Eddie stole a green card, and threatened to call Border Patrol, and he even said Eddie's got the U.S. title but is not a citizen. He even said a derogatory term. The Doctor of Thugonomics was clearly enemy number 1, and Eddie wasn't going to let that slide. He refused to see his city get verbally beaten down, and he thought that Cena was arrogant in claiming that he's more American than Eddie and the others. Latino, he showed some of that fury that he's known for, but Cena wasn't ready to fight unless it's for the title, or as he calls it, steal. It didn't take Eddie long to accept the challenge. John then told him that after taking his title, he's going to take his sister, and he struck. Fans are going absolutely bonkers. Cena's bouncing off the mat and turnbuckles, and the U.S. champion even took it up a notch and mocked the Doctor of Thugonomics. He didn't take it lightly, but he accomplished nothing in doing so. You couldn't outsmart this man. Hell, he even did a quick freestyle. Awesome moment. WWE saw Eddie Guerrero gain momentum as the weeks went by, and it was the perfect moment to turn him back. The run itself didn't exactly work well because the fans didn't want to boo Eddie. Simple as that, he was cool as hell riding a lowrider to the ring, outsmarting his opponent. It was entertaining, it was hilarious, all that. Later in the night, Latino Heat's preparing for his match when he learns that somebody did something to his lowrider. Eddie was raging hard and even asked Funaki to say who did it in Japanese if he could. Like, that's how desperate he was. The FBI were joking about the missing wheel, so he decides to strike. John Cena, on the contrary, denied having anything to do with that, until of course he came out with the wheel. He said that unlike Guerrero, he could actually get away with it, and the champ saw and heard enough quickly bringing the fight. The commentary team believed that Eddie needed to remember that it's a title match, because otherwise he just might screw himself over. Cena was bleeding, taking an ass kicking, with no sign of a potential return. It took a while for him to fight back, even though he couldn't capitalize on the moment because of a few things. For one, he was slow, and two, Cena was relying on whooping Eddie with a belt. Didn't matter though, because he connected with a clothesline to take control. Eddie was starting to make mistakes, but he wasn't completely out of the match. At one point, he blasted John with a chair. The crowd was popping, and the ref sensed something was up once again. His frog splash attempt, though, wasn't successful, as he took too long trying to feed off the crowd. After the commercial break, John Cena's got the upper hand. Fans tried railing him on, but it took a while. The challenger continued to disrespect the fans, violated the rules, and was trying to wear down Eddie Guerrero. He managed to break through, and the comeback was on. Cena managed to stop him dead in his tracks, but the FU wasn't to be. The ref got knocked down at the worst possible time, because this was when Eddie connected with a frog splash. By the time the ref counted the fall, Cena kicked out. The fans, though, were firm believers, so he decided to go for the Three Amigos. Suddenly, Cena delivers a low blow, and it ends in a DQ. He proceeds to grab the steel chain and blast Latino Heat, and the ref himself was even thrown to the outside. The fans were booing, but the worst had yet to come. Why? Because John grabbed that wheel and placed it in the middle of the ring in order to FU Eddie Guerrero. On that attack from last week, Cena enjoyed it. He said, quote unquote, "I used Eddie like a hoe from the Girls Gone Wild video shoot." He continued the freestyle before the champ interrupted, and the man was seething. He ran in there, tackled Cena, and delivered a slew of strikes. Cena was desperately eyeing the title as it was an opportunity to run. He succeeded and bolted. Well, actually, he decided to play Eddie's game because he stole the lowrider. Eddie was shouting as if it was his son or something, and he demanded a match. Taking the lowrider away was like taking his pride. Cena was gone, so Stephanie let him choose any match for the following week. So Eddie decided, you know, I want a Latino street fight in the parking lot. Match was made, and about it, it's one of the more iconic ones from the earlier days of SmackDown, at least from my perspective. Cena wasn't really worried. Matter of fact, he was claiming to be from the streets, so it was up his alley, and a bunch of the SmackDown mid-carders lined up. Cena did a freestyle. He's talking about stick shifts, hydraulics, whatever. Eddie arrived in that pickup truck and immediately brought the fight. The whole atmosphere and situation was unique. Not like it's never been done before, but it's very rare to see a parking lot brawl. It was also used in the SmackDown vs. Raw game a year later. Back to the action. Eddie tried suplexing him on top of a car, but it was countered. Cena brought in a lawnmower, or opted to, well, I don't even know what he wanted to do. Eddie moves away and evades a shovel attack as well. Cena's being flapjacked onto the hood. They were bouncing car doors into one another, choking each other with seatbelts, and at one point Cena even tossed Eddie into the trunk before it bounced directly into his face. It was no problem though, as John tossed Latino Heat into a windshield. Things were looking dire for both men. Cena got his head thrown into a car window. Eddie was on the verge of getting KO'd, and at one point Cena wanted to run away, but Eddie stopped him dead in his tracks and used a cigarette lighter to goad him out. It was anybody's match, but then the tides turned in Eddie's favor after Chavo Guerrero made an abrupt return and blasted Cena with a hubcap. Eddie hits the frog splash from the top of the van. 1, 2, 3. One of my favorite matches in 2003. It was a full-on fight, no flashy moves, none of that, and also helps that the match itself was unique when compared to others at the time. So it really stands out. Like, if you've never watched it before, I suggest you do so. You know, you're missing out. It's not John Cena or Eddie Guerrero's best match, obviously, but it's very unique and it was very entertaining. With Los Guerreros back in action, they immediately received a tag title shot, which they made the most out of. This made Eddie a double champion, which also meant he's got to do double the work. This would come to hurt Latino Heat the following week, as after defending the tag titles against Matt Hardy version 1 and his moron, Charlie Haas attacked. The champion was hurting greatly, but showed heart by wrestling. The reason why Haas attacked was because he was set to face Eddie in a title match later that night. Oddly enough, though, the Big Show decided to randomly come out and attack Eddie, and I should mention that 03 Big Show was the biggest douche. You can't tell me otherwise. Haas was salivating at the thought of an injured champion, and he took advantage. He dropped him on his back, struck the ribcage area, and Eddie showed spirit though. The challenger continued dissecting the abdomen, drove him into the steel post, and at this point, Chavo Guerrero had to come out and check on his uncle. Haas though refused to be denied. He locked in the Haas of pain. Eddie was writhing in pain, stuck in the middle of the ring, but he miraculously escaped. Charlie then grabs the belt, and again, you can't outsmart this man. Haas runs into the title, ref doesn't notice, and Eddie hits frog splash. 1, 2, 3. He did it again. The following week though, he had to defend his title against version 1. Initially, Eddie showed fury and intensity. A very dizzy Hardy struck back but failed to do any meaningful damage. Eddie, on the other hand, was still feeling some pain from the previous week. Distraction from Shannon, and Matt's in control. Hell, even hit the side effect, but Guerrero managed to kick out. Hardy continued working on that back, applying pressure, all while the fans were rallying him on. He managed to reverse though. Problem was, his ribcage was proven to be a huge disadvantage. Every kick out was taking a little energy out of Eddie Guerrero. My man Hardy was too stupid and ended up showboating himself back to defense. The champion managed to hit the Three Amigos despite the pain, and Cole's like, "That's the hat trick," to which Taz responds, "There's no hockey in Mexico." Hardy responds with a superplex, but it didn't matter as Guerrero called for Shannon, and what follows is one of the most iconic moments, at least for me, in Eddie's career. Look, it's not a standout moment or anything like that, but it's peak lying, cheating, and stealing. So Shannon tried bringing in the belt. Guerrero drops him and opts to toss the title into Hardy's hands, making it seem like he was blasted. Chavo then runs in and blasts him. Fans are cheering this intelligence, and Eddie hits the frog splash 1, 2, 3. A few minutes later, he crossed paths with a Big Show. The champion wanted to know if that little incident was personal or if Show was in a bad mood. He responded telling Guerrero that he doesn't like him nor his people, but despite that, he likes burritos, enchiladas, and there's nothing they can do to change that. Chavo was acting tough, but the big bully threw his weight around. During the commercial, Chavo questioned Eddie's temper and fury, and he asked, "Where's the Latino heat that was there when I was hurt?" So Eddie promised to take care of this Guerrero style. They were clearly alluding to something. About a half hour later, Big Show's preparing for his match, and the random delivery guy came in looking for Eddie. Apparently he had burritos, and obviously he loved burritos, so he stole the food and ate it himself. But he left a certain burrito for Latino Heat and demanded the guy hand this to him with a special sauce. A few minutes later, he set to face Orlando Jordan. The man was clearly struggling internally. He could barely fight, let alone defend himself, and instead of wrestling, he opted to run to the back in order to use the bathroom. He's blowing chunks in the back when Eddie runs in. He revealed that his cousin put in some special sauce in the burritos, and to make matters worse, there was no toilet paper because Eddie took it away. Instead of handing him toilet paper, he kicked the door off his hinges. But that was one of the most random things I've seen. A US title feud involving burritos and toilet paper. You know what's funny is the fact that McMahon didn't even know what a burrito was. Apparently it was a steak wrap. As expected, Big Show's gonna bounce back in a huge way. He assaulted a guy for hiding a burrito and kicked a bystander for no reason. Orlando Jordan was destroyed with ease, and I should note that a US title match was set for No Mercy. Latino Heat, on the other hand, wasn't exactly worried. He could just give him a burrito and send him his way. And even if he tried to take revenge here, well, he's got some family in Hartford. With regards to No Mercy, he believes he's got hope in the match. But from out of nowhere, the Giant struck with a sweet chin music and bounced the champion around. It took a while for an update to emerge, and Chavo revealed that Big Show wasn't going to get away with this. A few minutes later, he challenged him to a fight and even called him a fat ass. And there he is. Big Show, though, wasn't in the mood to fight. He was dressed well, according to himself, and he was going out. Chavo was childish, calling him a chicken, goading him into coming out, and the bell rings. Apparently this was a match. Chavo decides to run out. He gets counted out, which was very odd, but it would become apparent a few minutes later as Eddie Guerrero came out with a sewage truck. He assaulted a guy for hiding a burrito and kicked a bystander for no reason. Orlando Jordan was destroyed with ease, and I should note that a US title match was set for No Mercy. Latino Heat, on the other hand, wasn't exactly worried. He could just give him a burrito and send him his way. And even if he tried to take revenge here, well, he's got some family in Hartford. With regards to No Mercy, he believes he's got hope in the match. But from out of nowhere, the Giant struck with a sweet chin music and bounced the champion around. It took a while for an update to emerge, and Chavo revealed that Big Show wasn't going to get away with this. A few minutes later, he challenged him to a fight, and there he is. Big Show, though, wasn't in the mood to fight. He was dressed well, according to himself, and he was going out. Chavo was childish, calling him a chicken, goading him into coming out, and the bell rings. Apparently this was a match. Chavo decides to run out. He gets counted out, which was very odd, but it would become apparent a few minutes later as Eddie Guerrero came out with a sewage truck. The champion said it once again, "I told you not to mess with me." He spoke about the truck, and Big Show grew disgusted. He said that he was going to grab that hose and drench him, and Big Show's begging the crowd to shut up. He tried running away, but Chavo tripped him, and there he was being sprayed with raw. Big Show once again was embarrassed, but that's about as expected as a headlock, right? He wouldn't remain down for long, as on the final SmackDown before No Mercy, after Eddie Guerrero outsmarted Rhino, the Big Show ambushed Latino Heat and pulled him out of his own truck. To make matters worse, he decided to cause destruction to the lowrider itself. Big Show continued the attack with a vicious powerbomb on top of the hood before wrapping it up with a choke slam on top of the vehicle. Wow. Eddie was bleeding from all parts of his body, and it was clear that he was in a total disadvantage heading into Sunday. Now about the match, it wasn't that bad, it was decent. First of all, the champion didn't even come out with the lowrider. It was also damaged goods. In the beginning, Eddie eagerly went after Big Show, but the problem was the man was in form. Big Show had his way with Guerrero, and the champ tried lying, cheating, and stealing when it was all for nothing. At some point, it was like punching a wall, and Big Show was methodical, he's taking his time and beating up Eddie Guerrero. Sure, there was a moment where Guerrero caught Big Show, and sure, the ref died for a few minutes, but whacking the challenger with the brass knuckles accomplished nothing because the ref took too long. So he decides to bring in the belt. At this point, Latino Heat was all fired up. He goes up top and connects with the frog slash, but again, Big Show kicked out. The challenger bounced back with a choke slam, but when he went for the second one, Eddie low blowed him and hit the DDT. After Show kicked out, Guerrero walked right into the choke slam. 1, 2, 3, new champion. Mandela got me again. I seem to remember this being a one-sided destruction going Big Show's way. That clearly wasn't the case. Match itself was decent, it wasn't that bad, but Big Show's title run ended up being forgettable. After the match, Chavo went to check on his uncle, who responded with a shove, showing his clear disappointment in the result. Chavo tried reminding him of the tag titles, but he wasn't having it. That's a story for another day. Now that we finished Eddie, you can expect John Cena's title run next. Okay, what did I think about this title reign? It wasn't the best, obviously. It's certainly memorable due to the fact that Eddie was the first, and the fact that he started to connect with the crowd in a really big way at the time. The momentum he got from this run would lead to him becoming the WWE champion in February. My favorite match was Latino Street Fight. That's my favorite match due to the intensity, the violent spots, the uniqueness of it, basically. Second would probably go to the SummerSlam Fatal 4-Way. What do you guys think of Eddie Guerrero's title reign? Please comment down below. And that's it for this video. Make sure you hit the 3 amigos on the like button, and perhaps the frog splash on the subscribe button. Peace. I'm out.